Okay.
Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Holly.
So we're here to answer some questions about our upcoming free mini retreat called Your Second Season, which is on Saturday, October 30th. And we thought it would be fun and a good idea to kind of ask each other the questions that we maybe have heard already or that we think we might hear.
We're going to question each other.
Yes. A little Q&A. So I'm going to start with you.
Oh, okay.
You are starting with what you call a workout.
It's a workout.
And what if the word workout scares me?
Then I would call it movement.
Tell me more.
It really is a movement practice. I mean, that's what it is. You can call it what you want, but yes, it's a workout. And I want to make that distinction because people who know me know that I teach yoga and also that I teach a very slow, maybe not with an emphasis on challenge kind of yoga. So this is faster paced. This is a lot, maybe more movement. And we are going to get our heart rates up. We are going to possibly sweat a little bit. So yes, it is a workout. And if you don't like that name, like let's say you have a bad association, you had bad experiences, you just tell yourself, I don't like to work out, or I'm not good at working out, I can't work out. If you know me, then I trust that you will still come because you do trust me and you know that it's not going to be awful. Now, if you don't know me, you don't trust me yet. And in that case, I would say come out of curiosity and come because you do want to support your well-being. You do want to feel strong. You do want to be healthy and mobile. You want to take care of your body. And maybe the cherry on top to all of this being on Zoom is that you decide everything.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be in your space. And so if I'm saying, do 3 more, you can be like, or I'm just going to sit here.
Right.
It's all really accessible. In my membership, I've been teaching these classes for maybe six-ish months in my membership. And the age range in my membership, I think I have a couple people in their 30s, but mostly it's like 50s, 60s, 70s. And these women are really loving the practices. And I think in part because they didn't think it was something that they could do. And yet the way that we're doing them, it's all, over and over, I find myself saying, find your appropriate challenge. Like, form first. We use the principles of yoga. We talk about alignment, intentionality. We do only as much as we can do breathing through the nose. So there are like really specific markers to kind of help you find that whatever appropriate challenge is. And I can't tell you what that is for you. Just like in yoga, it's your body, and you get to decide. So I offer enough range of option in any movement that you can do it on a wall, you could do it, in a chair, you could do it on the floor. There's low impact, medium and higher impact. So wherever you are, come, because it really is doable and the after effects are worth it. That's my pitch.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm hearing is, if I was someone who was coming and not knowing you, because of course I've known you and I've worked with you as a yoga teacher and a movement teacher, but to understand that you're not going to be forced to do anything that your body is not feeling safe doing, because I think sometimes sometimes it is in the mind, but sometimes it's in the body. There might be things going on mobility issues, things that every individual has to think about. So that I love that the word intentionality, the different ways that the movement can happen for each person. And that really is the benefit of Zoom. I always like try to look in the bright side of what is the benefit of not meeting in person. Right. And I think that's one of the benefits is we have our own space to make our own choices, to be empowered. And isn't that part of midlife? I'm going to call it that. Midlife.
Just said it, Holly.
I know.
You said the word.
No, I would love to find a better word, but I have a feeling it's just that the culture is telling us that it's, no matter what we call it, it's not going to be
Right.
like, hey, I'm 18 now. That's exciting. It's different.
Yeah. It's not the label, it's the fact or the phase or the reality of it, no matter what we call it.
Because it really is a transition time. And so it sounds to me like the movement is addressing that transition as well. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how the movement practice addresses these big transitions that happen during this time.
Yeah, it's really practical and unsexy. It's like bone density. And that's bone density, muscle loss, those metabolism, of course, not that that's my focus, but like that's stuff that starts to change around 35. We peak our bone density around there, and then it just goes downhill. So these kinds of workouts are really great for that. Building some muscle, which just means like balance, getting up and down off of the floor, being able to go and do your other activities, being able to pick up your grandkids. So it's very, very pragmatic. And then we have things like mood regulation. Workouts are an amazing way to get a little dose of happy hormones. I've gone through a couple of depressive periods in my life just because of things that have happened. And thankfully, I had one therapist. She was like, well, I can send you to a psychiatrist and you can go on medication, or you can start working out. And she said, I think just start working out and see how it goes. And it did help. I almost hated that it helped, but it helped so much. And so, here I am in another period of change, some grief, some loss, but also just transition in general. And those happy hormones are really necessary. So that's another just super practical thing that this type of movement can get to. It's not the only way, but it's like a great benefit.
Yeah, I have to, I'll agree, because my yoga practice, it helps regulate my nervous system, but the joy factor, which sometimes could be missing, especially if there are a lot of heavy weights, and there can be, with transitions with family, whether it be children or parents. Parents are getting older, they're, the sandwich generation. It's called midlife because we are in the middle. A lot of us are in the middle of these phases, but also in our families, there might be that kind of thing going on. And I think the joy to be able to connect with that. And I felt the same way. Really, does this have to be the way to get the joy? But it is. I mean, it really has helped me to be able to do the more practical, I'm not going to say Jane Fonda workout, but like that, more like that kind of idea of just moving my body and maybe playing with balance in a different way than I did in yoga. So
yeah, we talk about Jane all the time in the workouts. We just go Jane style all the way.
Right. Maybe it's a little Richard Simmons. I don't know.
Richard Simmons.
I know.
And part of what you're talking about too is just, we could call it stress, and how there are so many stressors in life, just standard modern living, but then the added stress that can come in this kind of sandwich time. And these, again, a great way to reset the stress cycle, because if we don't, then we know that the cortisol and the nervous system doesn't regulate as well. And that's when we can get into real trouble, dis-ease in all kinds of ways. So,
yeah. Helps with if there's any joint aches, doing that, a little bit of strengthening makes so much difference. It's amazing.
it is amazing. And I think particularly if your practices or your favorite kind of movement is really soft and gentle, like we both are so about soft and gentle. Like, let's be soft and tender and loving with ourselves. And let's be that in the workout. Like, let's do it out of love and bring that kindness. And if all we're doing is soft, gentle, kind of stretchy practices, or even walking, which is so great, but if that's all you're doing, then there is a little bit missing in like creating that balance in your body. And just a little bit of strengthening, just really helps hold the body together. Joints, spine, posture, these are important pieces. So yeah. Do you have any other questions for me?
They might come up. I mean, you've answered so many, it's like, if I don't think I can do it, or what are the benefits? And so to me, that makes a lot of sense. And you did mention that you have a membership. And so if I want more of this movement, what would I do next?
Well, so the membership is actually, I think, a really great balance of the yoga and these fitness style classes. So there are 2 live classes every week, 1 yoga class on Sunday mornings and 1 strength and stretch, I call it. 30 minutes of this workout and then 15 minutes of just lovely stretching to balance out the work on Tuesday mornings. And then there's a whole virtual sanctuary of videos and all kinds of practices, along with some seasonal Ayurveda tips. So it's lovely. It's still right now only $47 a month. That needs to go up, because when I started it was 2 live classes a month at $47, and now it's 2 live classes a week. So I'm getting ready to raise the price. This is the time to jump in.
Great.
So Holly.
Yes.
Holly, so you are also my teacher. You have been a writing teacher and guide and inspiration supporter for me. And I think, like, coming into this, I would have some questions, or I do have some questions. Like, what if I think the first is just, what if I'm not a writer? Like, I don't identify with that. Maybe I don't even journal. Like, I don't do any of that. Why would I come? Is it weird to just come and suddenly start to write something? Like, that feels really strange.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think especially people who are maybe more attracted to the movement, sometimes they're either they love it all, or they're like, well, I just move and I just keep on going. And so sitting down and writing things down is just counterintuitive. So I understand
scary.
that. And super vulnerable. It's like, what do you mean I'm going to write? So I do want to say, first of all, that the writing portion of what we're going to be doing is not long. It is not about form or craft or being a writer at all. It's really just about getting some thoughts down. And the first part of what we're doing is really just making a list. So if you make a shopping list, if you make a to-do list, oh, I've got to get this done today, I got to write it, and you check those things off your list, that's kind of where we're starting. So I think no matter whether you're a writer or not, you know how to make a list, right? Simple, basic list. And it won't even be a long list. It's like 4 things. A 4-thing
doable.
list. Yeah, doable. And then we'll be able to share with each other in a really fun way that's not about like your deepest, darkest secrets. We're not, it's a simple kind of list. Then I'm just going to invite a little bit of back and forth, but really I'm going to invite you to consider some questions that you may or may not write to during our session or after. There might even be some questions that you want to say, well, I'm just going to tuck that one in my back pocket and think about it. And maybe I'll write it down. Maybe I'll, talk into my phone and kind of riff about it if it feels really like a powerful question, because I feel like it's not by finding the answers that we really get the answers. It's by asking the questions. And so really it's more about, as Rilke said, living the questions. Yeah.
So what if I open some Pandora's box, and there's hard stuff in there, or, as you said, it just feels vulnerable, or I feel something that I didn't want to feel, or I realize something that I didn't want to know, what do I do then? What happens?
Right. Well, I try not to go intentionally to a place that is super vulnerable or triggering for people. But you never know. Like, that is the risk we take as people who lead these kind of experiences with people. And so I think that is another benefit, again, of being on Zoom, is you can turn your camera off. You can actually, you can chat and say, I'm going to need to take a break. So it's a lot about paying attention. So you've had this time in your body. So we'll start with your practice. And so you've had the time to be in your body. And so hopefully you'll be there instead of up here, even for the writing and reflecting practice. And so if you can feel those signals in the body, you are a grown-up now. That's the great thing about being a woman of a certain age, whether that be 35 to 80, whatever it is, we have a lot of agency. So, but if you need support, if you really are feeling vulnerable to the point where there's some support that's needed, that, there is going to be time to address those things. And you, oftentimes when people bring up, gosh, I'm really having this thing is happening with me, there are a lot of other people that might relate. And say, oh gosh, me too. But they're really, I also want to talk about there being a really safe container of, I am not going to be there, nor is anyone else going to be there to solve anyone else's problems, but we are there to hold space for any experience that is there. Right. So the safety is there in the holding and the confidentiality. So really there is an understanding from the very beginning that this, what we do in here is confidential, because we are respecting each other's stories. And the only person who has a right to tell their story is the individual. Yeah.
And I'll add to that, having worked with you in groups and individually, you are an expert of really like creating that container. And I think partly because you come from the yoga, from the body piece, and from the writing piece, you just have this profound sense of groundedness, and there's kind of an anchor just in the practice of working with you and the way that you set it up. So the safety, agency, support, like those are words that I think of in working with you.
And I do also, there's something that I have a pretty strong passion about, is that every single person, but in this case, every single woman in this group, has their own genius. And so to really trust that, and we're not taught to trust our own voice and to trust our own genius, and we're not even often allowed to call ourselves as women genius, right? But really, I think we're all brilliant. And that doesn't mean it's here. It's like our whole selves are brilliant. And we know what we know, what we know. We sometimes just have to be willing to take a look at that. And maybe we just take a peek and then close the door for another year. That's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not taught to trust our bodies either.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That trust piece is an interesting way to think about this mini retreat. I think it is so much about building, maybe just putting the first brick down of that trust foundation.
I think it's because the more we kind of go into the later stages of life, we are the ones we need to trust. We have to, we don't have to, but it's so helpful.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you have to do anything, but it's so helpful to be able to trust the side of yourself that is trustworthy. Because I think we all have sides of ourselves that aren't so trustworthy.
Well, our thoughts. Don't believe everything you think.
It's just all this crazy stuff up here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if I'm quite an established writer? Like, what if I've published, I really do wear that identity as a writer. I mean, is this going to be kind of boring?
I love that question. Well, like I said, it's not a big writing exercise in that traditional way. And so it's something that's open to all, really. And as a writer, and at least the writers that I work with would just, I know they'd be like, oh, just sign me up. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Because the great thing about being a writer is that if there is a question that comes up, they've got a whole bunch of prompts for writing later, and so it's really not about, I'm going to share this beautiful piece of poetry that I just wrote in 5 minutes, because that's great if that's something that you do. Wow. Takes me more like a little longer than 5, but the writing is a tool for healing, and is a tool for awareness. It is a tool for awakening, I think. I mean, that sounds kind of woo, but awakening meaning becoming more connected to that trust. To like, what is this part of myself that, oh, I can really count on myself. I got my own back. And so really it's more about, and I think I could venture to say, after speaking to many writers and working with writers, that the questions that will come up during this time affect everyone and not just people who aren't writers. Writers deal with, they still have insecurities about, even if they're published, even if someone is published, even if they're a bestseller, there's still all the things. There's still work to do. There's always work to do.
Yeah.
We're always learning.
Always.
Yeah.
So I think my last question is about like you mentioned, sharing. Can you talk more about that? Because what if I am not really a sharer? I tend to be more introverted. I don't really just like my stuff being out there. Like, what does this look like? What do I have to do?
Yes. So the first little part of the exercise, the list that we're going to make, is something that I'm going to ask you to pair up. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to ask you to pair up with one person and share. So the invitation will be maybe to make your list something that you don't mind sharing. Like, make it really simple. And for the introverts in the room, that's the cool thing, is one person.
Yeah.
One other woman who is there for the same reason that you're there for. So it's not like going into a party where you don't know anybody, you don't really know the purpose. Yeah, I know we're both introverts. Oh God.
Don't make
Oh.
me go to a party.
No. And meet new people, even if they're cool. It's like, I will go to a workshop or a retreat where I know exactly why we're there. And I am told that I can be quiet if I want. I don't have to share. So you never, after that, you're done sharing. Like, I just want to, part of the reason I want to do that is I want to give everyone a chance to meet one other person, to connect with one other woman in a little tiny deeper way, have a little one-to-one, like, hey, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, and sharing just something, like I said, super like benign, like super not, it doesn't have to be the deepest, darkest thing. It's just a list, and we'll talk more about what that means. So that's a really good question. And then after that, it's more about going into your own space. And then there might be I might invite people to share stuff in the chat, which means you don't have to do any of that. And, or, there might be someone who really wants to, talk for a minute, and that's fine too. So there'll be a little back and forth, but even in my writing groups, you never, ever, ever have to share. Most people do, because it's just, they realize, oh, it's actually kind of great to do
Right.
that. But it's scary at first.
Yeah. And especially coming together for this, common purpose or theme or focus, then there's just something that is so hard to describe when we realize that we're not alone in our whatever felt like really crazy, or, is that wrong? Am I weird? Or whatever. The magic of realizing, oh, I'm not the only one. Oh my gosh, listen to all of these other women who, like, suddenly I feel really connected. I feel almost bonded. And I know as an introverted person that it's hard to remember that that happens. But when I have the experience, I go, oh my gosh, yeah, this is why it's so important to go a little bit out of my comfort zone and do something that feels a little more revealing or more vulnerable. So I'm glad you addressed that.
Yeah. And, as we also relate to being sensitive or highly sensitive people. And I do want to say shout out to my empaths and my highly sensitive people, because the other great thing about being on Zoom is you can turn your camera off, look away, because sometimes all that input can be a lot after a while, or having, feeling like you have to interact too much. There's the space of the screen, of course, but there's space for you to make really good choices. And then but it's 2 hours. And so some people might just be in it. And I love that. I hope that that's the case, actually, that most people feel like they actually want to be in it.
Yeah.
And to let themselves be in it.
Yeah. That's the invitation.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have aid my cues.
Yes. And I do want to say that I am in the process of creating something that will be combining. I don't have a membership yet, but I am working on a couple of programs, and one of them is like super kind of like this. It's very non-vulnerable, very simple, where we can it's going to be like this, but even smaller bits of just a tiny bit of movement and a tiny bit of reflecting, and then just move on. So those are called little dips, and I'd love to, share a little bit more about that, or for people who are interested, they can sign up on my list and then be ready when it's actually released, because I'm hoping sooner rather than later, but it's not quite there. It's in the creation process. Creativity takes time.
It does. Little dips. I want to take little dips.
Yeah. And then I got a bigger thing I'm working on. But yeah.
Great. And how can people find you? How could they ask more specific questions of you?
Well, I am on Instagram and Facebook at Holly Holt Writes at both places. So Facebook, Facebook / Holly Holt Writes, Instagram / Holly Holt Writes. That's the best way. My website, hollyholt.com, just go to contact or connect, I think, and then you can get on the mailing list that way. How about you?
Yeah, I'm just Michelle Marlahan everywhere. MichelleMarlahan.com and then Michelle Marlahan on the social.
Yeah. Holly Holt was taken, you know.
But Holly Holt writes, so.
That's true.
Well, thanks, Holly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. I hope that, I hope to you out there, this is helpful and assuages any concerns you might have.
Yes.
And really big invitation to come to be with us on Saturday, October 30th.
Free mini retreat for women really of all ages. And if you have friends, please invite them, share this. We just really want to be able to gather together and celebrate and connect and talk about this kind of amorphous, wonky, and really powerful time.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
Okay. Bye, Holly.
Bye.